Around 252 million years ago, Earth experienced the most devastating extinction event in its history, often referred to as the Great Dying. This was the Permian-Triassic extinction, a cataclysm so extreme that it erased almost all life forms on Earth. Roughly 96% of marine species and 70% of land species were annihilated. It's difficult to fully grasp the magnitude of this extinction. Entire ecosystems vanished, leaving Earth almost unrecognizable. Scientists believe the main triggers were massive volcanic eruptions in the region now known as the Siberian Traps, which released colossal amounts of greenhouse gases, particularly carbon dioxide, into the atmosphere. These volcanic activities were not ordinary eruptions, but rather a sustained period of intense volcanic activity that might have continued for hundreds of thousands of years. The results of this volcanic onslaught were severe and multifaceted. The release of carbon dioxide led to a runaway greenhouse effect, with global temperatures rising at a frightening pace. This rapid heating triggered a chain reaction that impacted both the land and the oceans. The oceans in particular suffered significantly. The warming waters led to a decrease in oxygen levels, creating anoxic conditions where most marine life couldn't survive. As the oceans turned into hostile environments with low oxygen and increased acidity, vast stretches of coral reefs and marine ecosystems collapsed. Fish, mollusks, and other marine organisms suffocated in these anoxic waters, while acidification dissolved the shells and exoskeletons of many sea creatures. On land, the effects were just as disastrous. Forests withered and habitats shrank, leaving many species with nowhere to go. As the vegetation dwindled, herbivores struggled to find food, and the lack of prey affected carnivores, creating a ripple effect that decimated terrestrial ecosystems. In the end, the majority of complex land animals, including many early reptiles and amphibians, perished. The world's biodiversity took a crushing blow, and the recovery was painfully slow. After the Permian-Triassic extinction, it took millions of years for life to regain its diversity and for new ecosystems to form. This extinction event left the planet barren, and the surviving species were forced to adapt to a radically changed environment. The loss of life was so severe that scientists often refer to it as a reset of the evolutionary clock. What's especially eerie about the Great Dying is how it reshaped life's evolutionary path. Some scientists believe that this extinction paved the way for the eventual rise of the dinosaurs by creating a void in ecosystems that new types of reptiles would eventually fill. Additionally, some of the groups that managed to survive this event adapted in ways that made them more resilient, which is why the early ancestors of mammals, including synapsids, could endure this period. This extinction, while devastating, was also a period of transformation, as new species evolved to fill the emptied ecological niches, setting the stage for the next phase in Earth's history. About 443 million years ago, long before the Permian extinction, the Earth experienced another dramatic event known as the Ordovician-Silurian extinction. This was one of the first major extinction events in the history of life and primarily affected marine organisms, which made up most of Earth's biodiversity at the time. The causes of this extinction are thought to be linked to a rapid climate shift that threw Earth into a period of intense glaciation. During the Ordovician period, Earth's climate was generally warm, with shallow seas covering large parts of the continents. However, this warm period ended abruptly and temperatures dropped sharply, possibly due to tectonic activity or a drop in atmospheric carbon dioxide. This sudden cooling caused glaciers to form, particularly around the southern supercontinent Gondwana, where ice sheets spread across the land. The extensive glaciation led to a significant drop in sea levels, exposing vast stretches of the seafloor and disrupting marine habitats on a global scale. Since so much of life was concentrated in the oceans, this had a devastating effect on biodiversity. The decline in sea levels drastically altered marine ecosystems as shallow sea habitats disappeared, and organisms adapted to warm, shallow waters were suddenly exposed to colder, deeper environments. Many marine species, including brachiopods, trilobites, and early coral reefs, struggled to survive in these new conditions, leading to the extinction of around 85% of marine species. But the challenges didn't end there. As glaciers continued to expand, oxygen levels in the ocean dropped, creating areas where most marine animals couldn't survive. These anoxic zones became death traps for countless organisms. In addition to low oxygen, colder temperatures slowed down the metabolic rates of many marine creatures, further reducing their ability to survive. For a time, it seemed like life in the oceans would be permanently scarred. Yet, after the initial wave of extinctions, the climate shifted again. The glaciers melted and sea levels began to rise, gradually restoring some of the lost marine habitats. While these changes offered some relief to surviving species, they also introduced new challenges as species had to readapt to the returning warmer waters. The Ordovician Silurian extinction was transformative for life on Earth. Although it decimated much of the planet's biodiversity, it also paved the way for the evolution of new species. Those that survived were often smaller, more adaptable creatures that could endure fluctuating environments. This event acted as a natural selection process, allowing only the hardiest of species to move forward. Over time, new forms of life evolved to occupy the open ecological niches left behind, gradually increasing biodiversity once more. In the aftermath, the Silurian period began, characterized by the recovery and diversification of marine life, leading to the rise of new types of fish and the eventual development of the first complex ecosystems on land. Around 375 million years ago, Earth experienced one of the most drawn-out extinction events in its history, the late Devonian extinction. Unlike other extinction events that struck quickly and with immediate visible impact, the late Devonian extinction unfolded over a period of approximately 20 million years, occurring in several waves rather than a single cataclysmic event. This slow-motion disaster claimed around 75% of Earth's species by its end, profoundly reshaping ecosystems and challenging the resilience of life on Earth. Unlike the violent asteroid impact that would later bring about the end of the dinosaurs, the Devonian extinction is believed to have been caused by a combination of environmental shifts and biological changes that subtly but steadily altered the world. The late Devonian extinction took place during a period when Earth was primarily covered by shallow seas filled with rich and diverse marine life. Coral reefs flourished, creating complex ecosystems, and fish were becoming increasingly diverse, including the early ancestors of modern sharks and bony fish. In addition to marine life, plants were beginning to take root on land, with the first forests appearing and laying the groundwork for future terrestrial ecosystems. However, this idyllic setting masked a series of significant environmental changes that would soon push many species to their limits. One of the key factors believed to have contributed to the Devonian extinction was the spread of vast forests on land, a seemingly benign but transformative development that had profound consequences on Earth's climate and atmosphere. As these early forests grew and spread, their roots reached deep into the soil, breaking down rocks and releasing nutrients into rivers and streams that ultimately flowed into the oceans. This influx of nutrients, particularly phosphorus, led to a phenomenon known as eutrophication in marine environments. Eutrophication caused a bloom of algae and other microorganisms in the oceans, which initially seemed like a boost to marine productivity. However, as these blooms grew, they consumed vast amounts of oxygen in the water, creating large anoxic zones, areas of the ocean where oxygen levels were too low to support most forms of life. These oxygen-deprived, dead zones spread throughout the oceans, suffocating marine organisms and disrupting the complex food webs that had evolved over millions of years. Coral reefs, which were particularly vulnerable to changes in water chemistry, suffered immensely, and the once thriving reef ecosystems began to decline. In addition to anoxia, the spread of forests on land contributed to significant shifts in the global climate. As trees absorbed large amounts of carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas from the atmosphere, they triggered a cooling effect on the planet. Temperatures dropped, leading to the formation of glaciers and a reduction in sea levels. As sea levels fell, shallow marine habitats were lost, further impacting marine life. The combination of cooling temperatures, oxygen-depleted oceans, and the loss of habitats created a cascade of challenges that many species could not overcome. While some organisms were able to adapt, the majority were unable to cope with the rapid changes in their environment, leading to widespread extinctions. But the story of the Devonian extinction doesn't end with environmental changes alone. There is evidence to suggest that these conditions set the stage for biological stresses as well, with certain groups of organisms outcompeting others in the struggle for survival. One such example is the rise of armored jawed fish, which dominated marine ecosystems during the Devonian. These fish, with their heavy exoskeletons and powerful jaws, were highly efficient predators and likely placed increased pressure on other species, disrupting the balance of the marine food chain. As these fish species flourished, they may have outcompeted or even driven some more vulnerable species to extinction. While the extinction waves of the late Devonian were primarily felt in marine environments, the changes on land also had lasting consequences. The spread of forests and the emergence of the first soils created new habitats and brought about changes in the hydrological cycle, impacting how water moved across landscapes and altering local climates. These changes in turn influenced the types of plants and animals that could survive on land. Although still in its early stages, terrestrial life was beginning to diversify, and the ecological disruptions of the Devonian played a role in shaping how land ecosystems would develop in the future. The Devonian extinction also served as a turning point in the evolution of plants. Many early plant species were wiped out, but those that survived adapted in ways that made them more resilient. For example, some plants developed seeds, a trait that allowed them to spread more effectively across diverse environments and survive in harsher conditions. This adaptation would prove crucial in the following periods as plants continued to evolve and diversify, eventually giving rise to the wide array of terrestrial ecosystems we see today. Despite the widespread loss of life, the Devonian extinction was not entirely bleak. In the aftermath, life began to rebound in new and surprising ways. With the coral reefs diminished and many marine predators gone, ecological niches opened up, allowing for new forms of life to emerge and evolve. This period of recovery saw the rise of different types of fish, many of which were more streamlined and adapted to the changing environments, setting the stage for the next evolutionary phase in the Carboniferous period. Meanwhile, on land, the foundations were being laid for the development of complex ecosystems that would eventually support a greater diversity of terrestrial animals, including the ancestors of amphibians and early reptiles. The drawn-out nature of the Devonian extinction is what makes it unique. Unlike other mass extinctions, which struck suddenly and decisively, the Devonian extinction was more like a prolonged pressure that tested the adaptability and resilience of Earth's organisms over millions of years. This slow-motion crisis forced species to either adapt to the gradual but relentless environmental changes or face extinction. Those that survived did so by evolving new traits and behaviors that allowed them to thrive in a world very different from the one their ancestors had known. The Devonian extinction was not only a tragedy, but also a catalyst for evolution, a prolonged challenge that drove life to adapt, diversify, and ultimately persist against the odds. In the grand scheme of Earth's history, the late Devonian extinction is a reminder of the complex interplay between environmental changes and biological evolution. It underscores how shifts in climate, geology, and biology can converge to reshape life on Earth, often in unexpected ways. The slow but devastating impact of the Devonian extinction serves as both a warning and an inspiration, highlighting the resilience of life and the delicate balance that sustains it. Around 201 million years ago, Earth faced yet another of its great extinction events, the Triassic-Jurassic extinction, which marked the transition between the Triassic and Jurassic periods. This was a critical moment in Earth's history, as it not only wiped out a large portion of life, but also cleared the way for the age of the dinosaurs. By the end of this extinction event, approximately 80% of species had disappeared, creating vast ecological gaps that would allow dinosaurs to rise as the dominant land animals for the next 135 million years. Unlike other extinction events primarily driven by climate or gradual environmental shifts, the Triassic-Jurassic extinction appears to have been triggered by intense volcanic activity in a region now known as the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province, CAMP, which would become one of the largest volcanic provinces in Earth's history. The intense volcanic activity associated with CAMP is thought to have been a direct consequence of the supercontinent Pangaea beginning to break apart. As tectonic plates shifted and began to drift, the Earth's crust fractured, allowing magma from the mantle to surge upwards in massive lava flows that covered large areas of land. These eruptions were not brief, but likely continued intermittently over hundreds of thousands of years, releasing enormous amounts of lava, ash, and gases, particularly carbon dioxide, CO2, and sulfur dioxide, SO2, into the atmosphere. The influx of CO2 and SO2 created a greenhouse effect, dramatically increasing global temperatures and altering the climate in ways that would become devastating for the planet's ecosystems. The initial impact of these eruptions was a rapid spike in global temperatures. As CO2 levels soared, the Earth's climate warmed significantly, creating an environment that was inhospitable to many species. The increase in temperature altered the hydrological cycle, intensifying droughts in some regions while causing extreme rainfall and flooding in others. These dramatic shifts placed immense stress on ecosystems that had adapted to relatively stable Triassic climates. Forests began to die off in some areas due to the lack of water, leaving herbivores without food and disrupting the entire food chain. Carnivorous species, which relied on herbivores for sustenance, faced starvation as their prey vanished. Species unable to adapt to these rapidly changing conditions perished, and ecosystems around the globe began to collapse. In addition to the greenhouse effect, volcanic eruptions released vast amounts of sulfur dioxide, which led to the formation of sulfuric acid aerosols in the atmosphere. These aerosols reflected sunlight away from the Earth, causing short-term cooling periods known as volcanic winters. This cycle of intense warming followed by temporary cooling created a highly unstable environment where temperatures fluctuated dramatically, making it difficult for species to survive. Plants, in particular, were hit hard by these swings in climate, as they struggled to adapt to alternating hot and cold conditions. Many plant species could not withstand these temperature shifts, leading to declines in plant life and further exacerbating food shortages for herbivores. The impact of these climatic changes was felt not only on land, but also in the oceans. The massive volcanic eruptions triggered ocean acidification as carbon dioxide dissolved into seawater, forming carbonic acid. This acidification disrupted the delicate balance of ocean chemistry, making it harder for marine organisms with calcium carbonate shells or skeletons, such as corals, mollusks, and some plankton, to survive. As these species struggled, entire marine ecosystems began to collapse. Coral reefs, which had been thriving during the Triassic, declined significantly, reducing the biodiversity of the oceans. The loss of coral reefs also meant the loss of habitats for countless other marine species, leading to a domino effect in which one species' decline led to the decline of others dependent on it for food or shelter. Another devastating consequence of the camp eruptions was the creation of large anoxic zones in the oceans. As temperatures rose, the solubility of oxygen in seawater decreased, creating areas where oxygen levels were too low to support most marine life. These anoxic conditions, coupled with acidification, made it increasingly difficult for marine species to survive, leading to further declines in biodiversity. Fish and other marine organisms that could not escape these low oxygen areas were doomed, and marine life faced one of its greatest die-offs. The ocean floors in some regions were likely covered with thick mats of bacteria that thrived in these oxygen-poor environments, an indication of the drastic ecological shift that had taken place. This prolonged period of environmental upheaval left only the hardiest species capable of withstanding the extreme conditions. However, in the midst of this destruction, evolutionary opportunities began to emerge. As ecosystems collapsed and numerous species vanished, ecological niches opened up. The large, slow-moving reptiles that had previously dominated the land struggled to adapt to the new world, while smaller, more adaptable animals began to thrive. Among these adaptable survivors were the early dinosaurs, which, although present during the Triassic period, had not yet risen to dominance. The extinction of their competitors allowed dinosaurs to exploit the available resources and proliferate across various ecosystems. The early dinosaurs had several advantages that helped them succeed in the post-extinction landscape. They were generally faster and more agile than many of the other reptiles of the time, enabling them to find food and evade predators more effectively. Their physiology also made them more adaptable to the fluctuations in temperature and climate. As a result, dinosaurs began to diversify rapidly, filling roles in the ecosystem that had once been occupied by other reptiles. By the time the Jurassic period began, dinosaurs were the dominant terrestrial animals, occupying nearly every ecological niche on land. This rise of dinosaurs would define the next era in Earth's history and lead to an explosion of diversity among dinosaur species. While dinosaurs were thriving on land, the marine ecosystems also began a slow recovery. New species of fish, along with early marine reptiles, started to fill the empty spaces left by the extinction event. Though it took millions of years, coral reefs eventually recovered, and new forms of marine life emerged to replace those that had been lost. The seas gradually transformed into rich, diverse environments once more, setting the stage for the complex marine ecosystems that would characterize the Jurassic period. However, the scars of the Triassic-Jurassic extinction would linger, and the recovery was neither quick nor easy. The Triassic-Jurassic extinction event was not only a story of destruction, but also one of resilience and adaptation. Life on Earth had faced another existential crisis, and though many species perished, others adapted and evolved to survive in a transformed world. This extinction event underscores the fragility of ecosystems in the face of rapid environmental change, and it serves as a powerful reminder of how interconnected life on Earth truly is. The organisms that emerged from this challenging period carried with them adaptations that would define the Mesozoic era, allowing life to not only recover, but to flourish. The rise of dinosaurs following the Triassic-Jurassic extinction was one of the most profound shifts in the history of life on Earth. The survivors of this event would go on to dominate the planet in ways that had never been seen before, and for millions of years, dinosaurs would become the unchallenged rulers of the land. This extinction event, while devastating, was also a turning point, marking the end of one era and the beginning of another. The Triassic-Jurassic extinction paved the way for the Age of Dinosaurs, an era of remarkable biodiversity and evolutionary innovation that would continue until the next great extinction reshaped the planet once again. 66 million years ago, Earth was forever changed by one of the most famous extinction events in its history, the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction. This event, also known as the KPG extinction, marked the end of the Cretaceous period and the reign of the dinosaurs. The cause was one of the most cataclysmic events our planet has ever witnessed: the impact of a massive asteroid, estimated to be about 10 to 15 kilometers wide, slamming into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The impact site, known as the Chicxulub crater, still exists today and serves as a haunting reminder of the event that extinguished approximately 75% of Earth's species. This extinction was so devastating that it completely reshaped life on Earth, clearing the path for the rise of mammals and eventually humans. The asteroid's impact unleashed an unimaginable amount of energy, equivalent to billions of atomic bombs detonating simultaneously. This immense force vaporized everything in its immediate vicinity, from marine life to forests. The blast sent a massive plume of debris into the atmosphere, including vaporized rock, molten metal, and superheated dust. Within minutes, this debris began to spread around the globe, blanketing the Earth in darkness. The heat from the impact ignited wildfires that spread across continents, burning forests and wiping out countless animal species in its path. These fires released enormous amounts of carbon dioxide, further affecting the global climate. As the debris continued to circulate in the atmosphere, sunlight was blocked from reaching the surface. This created what scientists refer to as an impact winter, a period of prolonged darkness and cooling that would last for months, if not years. With temperatures plummeting and photosynthesis grinding to a halt, ecosystems worldwide began to collapse. Plants, deprived of sunlight, withered and died, setting off a chain reaction that would ultimately affect every level of the food chain. Herbivores with no vegetation to eat starved, and carnivores followed suit as their prey disappeared. Marine ecosystems were similarly affected. With the plankton populations decimated, marine food webs collapsed, leading to the extinction of many marine species, including a significant number of fish and marine reptiles. The impact winter was only one part of the extreme climate shifts triggered by the asteroid. Once the dust and soot finally settled, the greenhouse gases released by the fires and impact-induced volcanic activity contributed to a rapid warming period. Temperatures soared, and the combination of cooling and subsequent warming placed immense stress on surviving species. Many animals were unable to adapt to these drastic climate swings and perished as a result. This cycle of environmental changes further strained an already fragile ecosystem, with only the most adaptable species managing to survive the ordeal. Interestingly, some scientists believe that volcanic activity in the Deccan Traps, located in present-day India, may have also contributed to the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction. Around the same time as the asteroid impact, massive volcanic eruptions were occurring in this region, releasing vast amounts of lava and toxic gases into the atmosphere. These eruptions may have exacerbated the environmental stresses caused by the impact, adding layers of complexity to an already catastrophic event. The combination of volcanic gases and ash would have further contributed to the cooling effect and altered atmospheric chemistry, making the conditions even more hostile for life. As species after species disappeared, certain groups began to emerge as the unlikely survivors of the extinction. Smaller, more adaptable creatures that could burrow underground or seek shelter from the harsh environmental conditions had a better chance of survival. Mammals, in particular, benefited from their smaller size, warm-bloodedness, and ability to seek shelter. Some of these early mammals were able to survive the freezing temperatures and scarce food supplies by entering states of dormancy, conserving energy until conditions improved. Birds, the only surviving lineage of dinosaurs, also managed to endure, likely due to their mobility and varied diets, which allowed them to adapt to the drastically changed environments. With the dinosaurs gone, the ecosystems that had been dominated by these massive reptiles for over 160 million years were now open to new forms of life. The extinction of the non-avian dinosaurs created a cascade of opportunities for the surviving species, allowing mammals to evolve and diversify. With fewer large predators and herbivores competing for resources, mammals gradually began to fill the ecological niches left vacant by the dinosaurs. These new mammalian lineages, which included early primates, rodents, and ungulates, evolved into a wide variety of forms, eventually leading to the diversity of mammals we see today. The Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction also had a significant impact on plant life. With many ancient plant species wiped out by the impact winter and subsequent fires, new types of vegetation began to take root. Angiosperms, or flowering plants, which had been present during the Cretaceous period but not as dominant, began to proliferate and spread across the planet. This shift in plant life created new ecosystems that would support the evolving mammals, birds, and other surviving animals, setting the stage for the modern landscapes we are familiar with today. The recovery from the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction was slow and took millions of years. However, this recovery period was also one of intense evolutionary activity. In the absence of dinosaurs, mammals experienced an evolutionary explosion, branching out into various forms and sizes. Over time, mammals evolved to fill every available ecological niche, from small insect-eating creatures to large herbivores and carnivores. By the time the Paleocene epoch began, mammals were the dominant terrestrial animals, a position they would continue to hold up to the present day. This extinction event also indirectly set the stage for the eventual rise of humans. Among the early mammals that survived were small primates, which would eventually give rise to the lineage leading to humans. If the dinosaurs had not been wiped out, it is unlikely that mammals would have been able to evolve and diversify in the way they did. The extinction of the dinosaurs, while devastating in the immediate sense, created a world where mammals and eventually humans could thrive. The evolution of primates, including our own ancestors, was part of the long recovery process that followed the extinction, illustrating how life on Earth can rebound and adapt after even the most extreme events. The Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction remains a poignant example of both the fragility and resilience of life on Earth. The asteroid impact and its aftermath wiped out some of the most successful and diverse groups of organisms that had ever lived, yet from this destruction emerged new forms of life that would go on to shape the future of the planet. This extinction event underscores the interconnectedness of Earth's systems, where a single event, such as an asteroid impact, can trigger a series of changes that ripple through every ecosystem. The legacy of the KPG extinction is all around us, visible in the plants, animals, and ecosystems that dominate Earth today. It serves as a reminder of the impermanence of any species' dominance on Earth and highlights the unpredictable forces that can shape the path of evolution. For the dinosaurs, this event marked the end of an era, but for mammals and ultimately humanity, it was the beginning of a new chapter. The world we know today, with its diverse ecosystems and complex webs of life, is in many ways a direct result of the changes brought about by the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction. This moment of catastrophe, though destructive, was also transformative, paving the way for the emergence of the modern world and the incredible array of life that inhabits it.